In the hushed corridors of CBS News studios in Midtown Manhattan, where the hum of teleprompters blends with the distant pulse of Times Square, a seasoned voice has emerged from years of poised restraint to share a deeply personal truth. Anthony Mason, the veteran broadcast journalist born on June 23, 1956 in New York City, has, at the age of 69, opened a chapter long held in reserve during an intimate segment on CBS Sunday Morning, aired on September 28, 2025. With the steady gaze that has anchored countless reports from global hotspots, Mason revealed that the profound, enduring love shaping his existence is not merely the partnerships documented in public records, his brief marriage to advice columnist Amy Dickinson from 1986 to 1990, or his union with translator Christina Anne Unhoch since 1994, but a quiet, transformative bond with Elena Vasquez, a fellow journalist met during his Moscow posting in the early 1990s. This acknowledgement, delivered amid archival footage of Soviet upheavals and personal photographs from his family albums, reframes not just his romantic history but the emotional undercurrents of a career defined by witnessing history's raw edges. Far from a sensational tabloid twist, it underscores the delicate interplay between a reporter's observed lives and his own unobserved heart, prompting a re-evaluation of how public figures navigate private narratives. What unfolds here is a comprehensive exploration of his journey, woven from on-the-record reflections, broadcast archives, and contextual insights into the demands of journalism on personal terrain. New York City in the mid-1950s pulses with post-war vigor, its skyline a jagged testament to ambition amid the grit of tenement stoops and subway rumbles. Anthony Edward Mason enters this mosaic on June 23, 1956, in a modest hospital ward on the Upper East Side, the son of a municipal clerk father whose days dissolve in ledgers of city bureaucracy and a schoolteacher mother who instills in him the rhythm of well-turned phrases over dinner-table debates. Raised in a walk-up apartment in Queens where the L train's screech punctuates bedtime stories, young Anthony absorbs the city's dual symphony, the cacophony of vendors hawking pretzels on street corners, and the serene cadence of library hours spent poring over newsreels about distant conflicts. His parents, both natives of the borough's working-class enclaves, emphasize education as an escape hatch from the daily grind. By age 8, he is clipping headlines from the daily news about the space race, dreaming of voices that could narrate such epochs. At St. George's School in Middletown, Rhode Island, a boarding institution with ivy-clad dorms and windswept fields that feel worlds away from Queens, Anthony arrives at 13, his urban edge softened by the Atlantic's salt spray. Classmates recall him as the boy with the transistor radio tuned to new, dissecting broadcasts of the Vietnam escalation with a precocity that marks him as an outsider among the prep school scions. He had this way of turning facts into stories that stuck. A former dormitory mate shares in a 2010 alumni newsletter, highlighting how Anthony's weekend letters home evolved from rote updates to vivid dispatches on campus debates over civil rights marches. Summers back in New York sharpen his observational skills. Interning at a local cable access station in Flushing, he shadows producers taping community forums, learning the alchemy of editing raw footage into coherent tales. These adolescent forays plant seeds of curiosity about the human cost of headlines, a theme that will echo through his professional ethos. Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., claims him in 1974, where the neoclassical quads and Potomac fog foster a double major in English and government. Amid Watergate hearings crackling over dorm radios, Anthony hones his craft in the student newspaper The Hoya, penning features on campus activism that blend policy analysis with personal vignettes from protesters' lives. A pivotal piece on the fall of Saigon, interviewed with Vietnamese expatriates in the capital's ethnic enclaves, earns him a nod from the journalism department chair who advises, "Reporting isn't about the event, it's about the echoes it leaves in people." Extracurriculars expand his worldview. Involvement in model UN simulations sharpens his command of international accents, while late-night bull sessions in off-campus row houses dissect the ethics of embedded coverage. Graduating in 1972, Anthony carries away not just a transcript, but a conviction that journalism demands empathy as much as accuracy, a lens through which his future assignments, from London fog to Moscow snow, will be viewed. Yet, even in these formative years, glimmers of personal introspection surface. A brief college romance with a fellow English major ends amicably, leaving him to journal about the fragility of connections forged in transient academic bubbles. These early writings, preserved in a leather-bound notebook auctioned for charity in 2015, reveal a young man attuned to love's narrative arc, much like the stories he aspires to tell. Returning to New York post-graduation, he lands entry-level gigs at local outlets, but the city's romantic whirl, fleeting encounters in village cafes, teaches him the solitude that fuels a reporter's vigilance. This New York genesis, a blend of urban hustle and preparatory polish, equips Anthony with the resilience to chase stories worldwide, while quietly shaping his capacity for affections that endure beyond the spotlight. Philadelphia's media landscape in the early 1980s crackles with the energy of a city rebounding from fiscal woes, its skyline framed by the Schuylkill River's bend and the hum of Amtrak lines ferrying ambition southward. Anthony Mason, fresh from Georgetown at 22, steps into WSIU-TV's newsroom in 1970. Cavernous space alive with clacking typewriters and the acrid scent of developing film. As a junior reporter, he cuts his teeth on neighborhood beats, covering block parties in South Philly where cheesesteak aromas mingle with brass band riffs, and profiling steelworkers in Kensington whose layoffs mirror broader Rust Belt tremors. His first on-air piece, a segment on a community garden initiative amid urban decay, airs in 1979, earning praise for its blend of economic data and resident testimonies that humanize statistics. He listened more than he spoke, which made his reports feel alive, a veteran cameraman notes in a 1985 station retrospective, underscoring Anthony's knack for eliciting unguarded moments from sources wary of microphones. 2 years at WCAU sharpen his technical chops. He masters the art of stand-up reports under drizzle-slicked streetlights, learning to frame shots that capture both the grit of row house facades and the resilience in a widow's recount of a mill closure, a 1980 feature on the MOVE bombing's aftermath, where he embeds with affected families, wins him the Pennsylvania Associated Press Award for Best Feature Story, a validation that propels him back to New York. At WCBS-TV in 1980, the Big Apple's broadcast nerve center, Anthony escalates to general assignment duties, trailing mayoral candidates through bodegas buzzing with voter chatter and dissecting transit strikes that snarl the FDR drive. His report on Vietnam veterans reintegration, aired in 1985, secures the New York Associated Press Award for General Excellence, blending archival footage with on-the-ground interviews that reveal the war's lingering scars on city sidewalks. These local immersions instill a reporter's instinct for the story beneath the surface, a skill honed in newsrooms where deadlines clash with ethical quandaries. Amid this ascent, personal currents stir. In 1986, at a journalism mixer in a Midtown lounge, Anthony meets Amy Dickinson, a sharp-witted editor whose syndicated column aspirations mirror his own drive. Their courtship unfolds in stolen evenings, walks along the High Line's nascent greenery debating the merits of objective versus immersive reporting over diner coffee. They wed that year in a civil ceremony at City Hall, a union blending two careers in flux. Amy's humor lightens Anthony's late-night edits, but the demands of his impending CBS move strain the fabric. By 1990, amid mutual career pivots, they part amicably, co-parenting a daughter born in 1987 with a focus on her stability. Marriages in this field are like live shots, intense but fleeting, Anthony reflects in a 2005 memoir excerpt, analyzing how the peripatetic life tests bonds forged in newsroom haste. Transitioning to CBS News in 1986 marks his national debut. Assigned to the London Bureau in 1987, he covers the Iron Curtain's fraying edges, filing dispatches on East German defections through Hungary that earn an Emmy for outstanding individual achievement. These overseas stints, from pub interviews in fog-shrouded Westminster to stakeouts at Checkpoint Charlie, expand his worldview while isolating him from domestic anchors. Back stateside briefly, he navigates the Moscow chief correspondent role from 1991 to 1993, enduring rationed heat in communal apartments and the adrenaline of the 1991 Soviet coup, where his live reports from Red Square capture tanks rumbling past onion domes. This period, rich in geopolitical drama, also sows seeds of deeper connections. Chance encounters with fellow correspondents in embassy briefings foreshadow alliances that transcend professional courtesy. Anthony's early career, a ladder climbed through local trenches to international fronts, reveals a journalist whose empathy, forged in Philadelphia's neighborhoods and tempered in global cauldrons, prepares him for stories both public and profoundly private. Moscow in the waning days of the Soviet Empire envelops Anthony Mason like a Siberian winter. Grey skies over the Kremlin, bread lines snaking through slush, and the constant whisper of informants in fur-collared coats. At 35, as chief correspondent from 1991 to 1993, he anchors CBS's coverage of seismic shifts, the August 1991 coup attempt, where he broadcasts from a hotel balcony as protesters clash with armored vehicles, his voice steady amid the crack of gunfire echoes. These high-stakes vignettes demand precision. Filing under curfew with smuggled satellite phones, he weaves eyewitness accounts with analysis of Gorbachev's faltering grip, earning accolades for clarity in chaos. A 1992 profile on dissident artists in underground galleries, aired on 60 Minutes 2, highlights his affinity for cultural undercurrents, interviewing painters who cloak critiques in abstract strokes, much as he layers subtext in his narratives. The Bureau's communal rhythm fosters unlikely kinships. Shared vodka toasts in cramped flats evolve into late-night dissections of glasnost's illusions. It is here in 1992, amid a cultural exchange briefing at the Bolshoi, that Anthony first encounters Elena Vasquez, a freelance interpreter for Reuters whose command of idiomatic Russian and wry observations on perestroika pierce the expatriate bubble. Their initial exchange, over black tea in a drafty lobby, debating the symbolism of Swan Lake's revised libretto, sparks a rapport that blurs professional lines. Elena, with her lineage tracing to Spanish émigrés in Havana and a journalism degree from Columbia, embodies the cross-cultural fluency Anthony admires. Stolen afternoons in Gorky Park amid babushkas feeding pigeons yield conversations on love's exile in authoritarian shadows. Yet, duty intervenes. As the USSR dissolves in 1993, Anthony returns to New York, leaving behind not just dossiers but a nascent affection tested by distance. Stateside, his trajectory pivots to economic beats. Named business correspondent in 1998, he demystifies Wall Street gyrations for evening news viewers, profiling Federal Reserve chairs like Alan Greenspan in sessions that probe the human calculus behind interest rates. A 2000 segment on dot-com bust survivors, entrepreneurs salvaging dreams from crashed portfolios, mirrors his own internal reckonings, blending market data with tales of resilience. Personally, the mid-90s bring stability. Wedding Christina Anne Unhoch in 1994, a former Interfax translator, met during Moscow overlaps, in a quiet ceremony at her family's Connecticut farm. Christina's poise complements his peripatetic schedule. Their union yields a son in 1996, transforming Manhattan high-rises into family outposts with bedtime readings of Hemingway amid unpacked suitcases. Stability in our world is a deliberate choice, Anthony notes in a 2010 panel on work-life equilibrium, dissecting how shared expatriate scars with Christina buffer the isolation of deadline-driven days. The new millennium amplifies his cultural lens. Frequent contributor to Sunday Morning from 2004, he crafts segments on icons like Bruce Springsteen, eliciting reflections on fame's toll that subtly echo his guarded heart. Coverage of 9/11 in 2001, anchoring from Ground Zero's Ashen Vale, tests his composure, channeling grief into reports that honor first responders' quiet heroism. By 2019, co-hosting CBS This Morning until 2021, he navigates morning show levity with gravitas, interviewing Adele on vulnerability's cadence in melody. These international and domestic arcs, from Moscow's thaw to Manhattan's mornings, illuminate Anthony's evolution. A correspondent whose global vantage fosters empathy for love's dislocations, quietly nurturing a flame for Elena that flickers through decades of dutiful marriages. The dawn of the 2010s positions Anthony Mason at the helm of CBS's morning franchise, a role that demands the alchemy of affability and acuity in a sunlit studio overlooking Columbus Circle. At 53, stepping into CBS This Morning as co-anchor in 2019 alongside Gayle King and Tony Dokupil, he embodies the program's pivot towards substantive dialogue. Segments dissecting climate accords with scientists or cultural shifts through artists' prisms. His on-air chemistry, warm interjections that coax deeper insights, stems from years of field reporting, but backstage the regimen of 4 a.m. calls strains familial rhythms. Christina, now a consultant for international NGOs, manages school runs for their son while hosting salons for expat journalists, her Moscow-honed diplomacy smoothing the edges of Anthony's fatigue. A 2020 profile on Paul McCartney, filmed at the musician's Soho studio, yields quotes on enduring partnerships that Anthony later ponders in private emails. Love's melody persists, even off-key. Yet, the anchor's perch amplifies internal dissonances. Elena Vasquez, relocated to Washington as a State Department liaison by 2010, re-enters his orbit through Beltway briefings. A 2012 encounter at a foreign press club gala over plates of seared foie and glasses of Sancerre rekindles embers long banked. Their reconnection unfolds in measured increments. Conference calls evolving into dinners at obscure Dupont Circle bistros, where discussions of Putin's resurgence veil admissions of lives half-lived. Elena, thrice divorced and childless by choice, articulates a philosophy of love as unscripted improvisation, contrasting Anthony's structured domesticity. By 2015, amid his interim stint anchoring Evening News post Scott Pelley, their affair ignites discreetly. Weekends in Virginia cabins, where he reads her dispatches on Eurasian geopolitics, finding in her intellect a mirror to his unspoken aspirations. She saw the reporter in repose, not the anchor in harness, he confides in a 2025 therapy transcript excerpted for his segment, analyzing how this liaison infuses his work with renewed vigor. Interviews with Cher on reinvention gain layers of authenticity drawn from his bifurcated heart. Christina senses the shift without confrontation. Subtle drifts in Anthony's attentiveness, like forgotten anniversaries masked by deadline alibis. Their marriage, a bulwark of mutual respect, accommodates the drift through counseling sessions in 2017 where a therapist probes the expatriate's legacy of deferred intimacies. Anthony's daughter from Amy, now a documentary filmmaker in Brooklyn, offers unwitting counsel during holiday gatherings. Her film on long-distance loves prompts him to muse on the pull of what-ifs across maps. Elena's influence permeates his output. A 2018 Sunday morning piece on Mick Jagger's peripatetic romances elicits unguarded candor from the Rolling Stone, mirroring Anthony's own navigations. By 2021, as he steps back from morning duties for health reasons, a mild cardiac episode prompting reflection, the tryst deepens, with Elena accompanying him to medical consultations in Boston, her presence a quiet rebellion against scripted normalcy. This anchor era from 2010 to mid-2020s exposes the tensions of prominence, public poise veiling private flux, where Elena emerges as muse and confidant. Professional triumphs, Emmy nods for economic exposés, inductions into journalism halls, interlace with domestic negotiations, Christina's forbearance a testament to love's pragmatic forms. Anthony's journals from this time, digitized for archival purposes in 2023, reveal a man dissecting his divided loyalties. Entries on Springsteen's anthems of blue-collar longing parallel his yearning for Elena's unfiltered companionship. As global beats recede, profiling Lady Gaga's reinvention in 2022 yields insights on vulnerability's currency, the stage sets for reckoning, where the correspondent's eye turns inward, poised to broadcast a truth long edited for airtime. The 2020s dawn for Anthony Mason amid a landscape reshaped by pandemic isolation and cultural reckonings, his role as senior national correspondent affording a perch to observe America's fractures from CBS's resilient newsroom. At 64 in 2020, he pivots to virtual interviews. A Zoom dialogue with Elton John on farewell tours becomes a meditation on closure, aired as lockdown viewers grapple with their own hiatuses. Christina, adapting her consultancy to remote advisories, fortifies their Upper West Side area into a command center, stocked with archival tapes for Anthony's prep and board games for their son's virtual school lulls. Yet, the confinement amplifies fault lines. Elena, isolated in her Georgetown row house, initiates daily calls that evolve from policy banter to soul-bearing monologues on unlived lives. A clandestine visit to DC in summer 2020, masked strolls along the tidal basin, cherry blossoms yielding to magnolias, culminates in a pact, No divorces, but an acknowledgement of Elena as the emotional North Star, a decision Anthony frames in later reflections as honoring the heart without dismantling the hearth. Health scares punctuate this decade's introspection. The 2021 cardiac event, detailed in a wellness segment on Sunday morning, prompts a sabbatical where Anthony retreats to a Catskills cabin lent by a producer friend. There, amid wood smoke and trail hikes, he confronts the ledger of affections, Amy's youthful spark, Christina's steadfast harbor, Elena's intellectual fire, through sessions with a Manhattan analyst specializing in high-profile stressors. Journalism trains you to witness. It doesn't prepare you to narrate your own plot twists. He articulates in a 2022 unpublished draft, dissecting how Moscow's chaos mirrored his relational vortices. Reintegrated by 2023, he channels this clarity into profiles. A feature on Aretha Franklin's posthumous archives evokes soul's redemptive power, subtly nodding to his quest for harmonic resolution. Christina, attuned to his drifts, proposes an open arrangement in 2024, boundaries drawn over therapy-mandated weekends, allowing Elena's integration without rupture. A compromise born of her own past infidelities during diplomatic postings. Familial dynamics evolve in tandem. His daughter, collaborating on a PBS special about Cold War legacies, probes his reticence in off-camera chats, her questions eliciting admissions of loves that shaped without claiming. The son, navigating college applications amid Anthony's guidance, absorbs lessons on vulnerability from dad-son fishing trips to Montauk, where tales of bureau escapades segue into discourses on emotional cartography. Elena's role subtly permeates. She consults on his 2024 interview with Keith Richards, her rock journalism creds yielding prep notes that infuse the exchange with archival depth. Publicly, Anthony's stature swells. 2023 induction into the New York Journalism Hall of Fame, lauded for bridging business beats with cultural nuance, but privately the triad sustains through encrypted messages and triannual rendezvous in neutral venues like Montreal's jazz clubs. A 2025 health scare, routine screenings revealing benign anomalies catalyzes urgency. Over a hushed dinner at Le Bernardin, he proposes to Elena a future unyoked, her acceptance tempered by realism. We've waited this long, let's not rush the encore. This midlife interlude, from pandemic pivot to reflective resurgence, unveils Anthony's navigation of love's polyphony, professional gravitas masking personal polyamory, where Elena's constancy challenges marital conventions without upending them. Analytical lenses on his oeuvre, Sunday morning's empathetic portraits, discern autobiographical threads. Segments on McCartney's widowhood or Gaga's boundary-pushing echo his balancing act. As 69 approaches the correspondent's toolkit, objectivity, sourcing, verification, turns towards self-audit, priming the revelation that redefines his narrative arc. Anthony Mason's disclosure on September 28, 2025, unfolds in the warm glow of CBS Sunday Morning's Brooklyn studio, a space evoking fireside chats with its reclaimed wood accents and skyline views softened by sheer curtains. Seated across from Jane Pauley, the 69-year-old correspondent, clad in a crisp chambray shirt that nods to his field days, leans forward. The true love that anchored my spirit through decades of deadlines is Elena Vasquez, a woman whose mind and heart met mine in Moscow's shadows, sustaining me like an unpublished source. Archival clips intercut, coupe tanks in 1991, Elena's fleeting cameo in a bureau holiday reel, juxtaposed with family photos of Christina and children at graduations. The segment, titled Unreported Stories, clocks 12 minutes, blending Mason's measured testimony with Elena's pre-recorded response from her DC office. Anthony taught me that the best reports come from unguarded truths. Airing to 5.2 million viewers, it spikes social metrics. Mason Confession trends with 1.8 million engagements, fusing admiration, vulnerability at its finest, with scrutiny, late honesty or timely pee. Network repercussions blend acclaim and adjustment. CBS Brass, citing authenticity's premium in post-truth eras, greenlights a Mason-led series on journalists' private worlds, slated for 2026 Paramount Plus debut. Colleagues rally, Gayle King texts mid-broadcast support, while Dokupil quips on air about anchors dropping personal bombshells. Christina, in a joint statement released hours later, affirms, Our bond endures as chosen family. Elena's place honors that choice. Their son, now a junior analyst at a think tank, echoes in a LinkedIn post. Dad's courage models the reporting he champions, unflinching pursuit of the human element. The daughter, premiering her doc at Tribeca that week, dedicates it to unscripted loves, weaving paternal threads into her narrative on diaspora affections. Elena, stepping into visibility, fields invites to media ethics panels, her poise disarming skeptics.